Tracy and the Big D here. Well, it's just the Big D. Tracy's had to go and field a few calls out there. Thanks for the people that get back to us every now and again. But I tell you what, someone has wandered into the studio, and I am in a living dream here. A living legend, I can tell you that, of Australian music. Not just country music, but right across the genres is Joe Camilleri, and he joins me tonight. G'day, Joe. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mate, absolutely brilliant. It's pretty exciting for us on the coast up here. Is next week you're going to be here on the coast at Noosa as part of the Black Sorrows tour, and 50 years in the industry for you.
I know. It went a flick of an eye, and it feels like that sometimes. It just feels like yesterday, and you were doing your first gig somewhere in Footscray, in Victoria, and all of a sudden, you look around and you're 50 years older, and not necessarily wiser.
But it's obviously been a great journey for you from the times that people remember the Jojo Zepp and the Falcons, the Black Sorrows, just the variety that Joe Camilleri is associated with, whether it's a blues, a country feel, a jazz feel, or whatever that you've got at that time in your music. No one could ever say Joe Camilleri's been boxed into a pigeonhole with his music.
Well, I guess so. Look, it's a wide net. I'm a music fan, and one thing led to something else. Rock and roll led to something else. Elvis led to the Beatles. The Beatles led to the Stones. The Stones, went back to Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry went to the Burrito Brothers. The Burrito Brothers, all that stuff. It just kept going backwards and forward. And it's the instruments that you want to play too. I picked up the saxophone, started toying with that, and I got into jazz music, because I thought, that was the avenue for that instrument. But of course, it was the avenue for rock and roll. You played harmonica. It was a beautiful instrument for the blues. Just a perfect thing to play. And everyone was playing the blues harmonica in the 60s because it was reasonably easy to play. You just had to do a little bit of work, and you'll get something. Of course, to master it becomes to become a master chef. It's but just to be a novice, you could get away with it. When you listen to Love Me Do, it's kind of pretty simple kind of harmonica playing. It's kind of day one harmonica playing, isn't it? And there it is on a record, and everybody's playing Love Me Do. So one thing led to another for me, and songwriting became very important to me. And of course, I've written nearly 400 songs, and the first 50 are pretty easy, really, because it's kind of the tapestry of your life. You're 25 years old. You've got 25 years of kind of angst in you, and they pop out. Everything just pops out. The first album pops out, and normally a success, which happened in my case. And then you struggle with it, but you've got to push through it and find something else. The genres of music helps you sort of discover that. I think that, I've just recorded I've finished, Certified Blues, my 45th album, and I cross a lot of genres through that record, and people have picked up on that. Journalists have picked up on that on this record.
We're talking with Joe Camilleri here tonight, and it's fabulous. We've got some great history, some great music. We might play a song and then come back and have a little bit of a play and a little bit more of a chat of what we're talking about, because Joe Camilleri is on the sunny coast next week. Here's a Joe Camilleri classic now with the Black Sorrows. That's Joe Camilleri and the Black Sorrows, and Harley and Rose there. And Joe Camilleri is our very special guest here tonight with Tracy and the Big D. And it's so good to have you here, Joe. Now, in April this year, the big shock for a lot of country music people was seeing the CRS and the publicity of you releasing a country song, Save Me, and it got a fair bit of airplay around the country music stations and so forth. You were telling us before about your love of country music, and you're not really into one genre or enough, but that's got a great feel to it, that song, the whole sing-along in the chorus and everything, that it just gets a real great feel. How did that song come about?
Oh, yeah, it started with sometimes ideas just happen because of what's going on around you, and journalists kind of a bit annoying. I found that they weren't talking about the good things, and I just thought they just wanted to feather their own nest, and they weren't listening to enough music and enough variety. It's all very well to sort of. I think Australian music gets overlooked to a large degree.
Here.
And there's really and there's enough of it here, and I'm a great campaigner for just play more Australian music, and you'll have a much better industry, and you'll have better songs, and you'll have better
Absolutely.
it happened in the 70s and 80s, you know, and the 90s. You know, there's good things, but people aren't playing enough of it. You know, they talk about it. They love to talk the talk, and you know, when the arias come on and blah blah blah. Sometimes there are stations that should be playing more Australian music. And I've been playing around the world for a long time, and I know that if I go to Canada, it's 66% Canadian music. If I go to Paris or France, or you know, somewhere in France, it's 80% French music. You know,
Yes.
They look after themselves, but not as a cultural thing, more so than just playing music. You know,
Is that a radio station thing, or is it a record company? Where do you think the problem lies? Without upsetting anyone that might.
I think it lies with the government. You know, so it's so easy to manipulate Australian content.
Right.
Because you can say, well, I'll play Australian music from 12 till 6 a.m.
Right.
and I can play the greatest hits.
Yes.
And there's so much great music out there, and you don't have to be ageist. Just play good music for the sake of good music. Don't play, you know. Don't tell me you're going to be playing. Oh, we don't do that because we only play 70s music or 80s music, and we stop there. You know, why are you doing that? Why do you have to hurt yourself like that? It annoys me a little bit. And so anyway, so Save Me started, you know, I had one line. I only had one line of the song. You know, it goes, I'll sing in a second. All your jokers on this road to hell, you know who you are, so take a bow. You laughed at me when I wonder who's laughing now, you know. Because good music will always be good music, and it'll stand the test of time, and it'll have shelf life.
Yes.
You know, a lot of these scenarios are just all
Yeah.
those sort of people, you know, they're so no longer, seems to be more difficult, you know. I love coming to the stations like this because you guys are music people, you know, you do this because you love doing it.
Absolutely.
And it's really, and it shows, you know, and the people that listen to it like it because it shows. Because
Passionate about the music
that's
they want
right.
to hear. Absolutely.
And they might hate my version of this particular song, but that's okay. You know, so anyway, that's why the song started. It started like that. It turned into a gospel song because it's got some airplay, and because I keep changing it around, I keep involving the audience. You know, whether they sing or to clap their hands, or and we try to make it how it should have been recorded, but which would have been gospel choir on the spot, people clapping, you know, just having fun with it.
Yep.
Of course.
Well, let's hear a few bars of this
Okay.
now. Let's hear it. This is Save Me and Joe Camilleri.
Save me, hold me in your arms, keep me till the break of dawn. Save me before the night is through. I wouldn't have it any other way. All you jokers on that road to hell, you know who you are, so take a bow. You laughed at me when I tripped and fell. I wonder who's laughing now. Save me, take me with you, Lord. Let me see that big red light. Oh, Lord, save me. So lonely way down here. Don't you let me out of your sight. All you sinners in your town steal, well, you might really think you got it made. Well, you don't suffer or know to fear. If I was you, I'd surely be afraid. Save me, hold me in your arms, keep me till the break of day. And we say, oh Lord, save me. So lonely way down here, I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Tracy the Big D here on a Wednesday night. Thanks for your company. Hope you can stick around. Our very special guest tonight is Joe Camilleri. And, mate, beautiful song, Save Me.
It's
just
funny.
just
It's a funny little
fantastic
thing, isn't it?
before the break. Mate, great to hear that.
Oh, thank you.
Now, the good news is that a couple of things. We'll talk about the tour dates very shortly. Now, as you know, we're a country show here, and we were having a bit of a discussion, Tracy and I was going through, because being a kid of the 70s, listening to the 70s music and so forth, and I said, you know what we should play of Joe's? We should play Beating Around the Bush here tonight with absolute royalty.
Oh, thank you.
But yes, it is, and of course. So from that point of view, how does that feel when your songs are being covered? Particularly, it was you look back around and you think back at the music shows of the time, Countdown, Bandstand, those sort of things that were around. And then a country artist like Adam Brand comes out and covers your song and puts a bit of a country feel in it. But what did you think?
I thought he did a pretty good version of it. I didn't write that song. Wayne Burt wrote the song. But there's a great video of us doing it on Countdown, I think. Right. And I was as skinny as a rake, and I had a porn mustache.
Is this the green suit? The green and yeah.
And I was, and it was a fabulous song, and it was in a movie called Living in the Land of Oz, big. And it was the start of what the JoJo Zep and the Falcons were, the first album. So from that perspective, Adam once invited me to play with. So it was very generous, and it was I think it was a bigger hit for him than it was for us.
Right.
But I also think that there was a time, where all of a sudden when we were playing it, Beating Around the Bush sounded a bit colonial. When he did it 20 years later, it sounded right. The word
the culture
bush,
change and that sort of thing,
all those different things, all the things that came with it. Just a hard rockin' song, you know, and it had all the bits. So
is that the case though that we've made the point plenty of times on this show before, is that 70s rock, you could just pick it up and move it into modern day country in a lot of respects. Is that the case that we could go back and think songs that Frankie J. Holden or whoever was doing in the 70s, you could just bring them back and put a little bit of modernisation and you'd have a country hit?
I think to some degree. I think it's changed in the last 10 years. When I did Adam Harvey's first album, produced that record, we had 4 or 5 singles off that. Yep. And we did the first song. The first thing was a hit for him, which was a country radio song. And it was incredibly popular, and that was country rock. I felt that was old, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
The good value country rock music into a more modern, slightly more modern scenario. And in fact, that's why Adam asked me to produce that record, because he liked what I did. He also, not only as a musician and a songwriter, but also liked the production. So we did that. But of course, as all you had to add, that's what they did in America, all they had to add from a rock and roll, country rock, so just add the pedal steel or the violin. And they did versions of that in America where they had, to cross over, they took the pedal steel out. And they'll do slightly same production, but just change.
Shania Twain was a great example, wasn't it?
Incredible.
Come On Over, the album. Yeah. Look, I could be here all night and talk, Joe. It's been an absolute pleasure. The 14th of Friday the 14th at the Fusion Villa at Noosa. I hope next time you're on the coast you can call in. We can resume the chat.
I'd love to. It's a pleasure for me. Thank you.
And here is Joe Camilleri and the Black Sorrows. And we're going to go out now with another classic. Let's see if you can recognize